So I got a load in the morning that I've got to drop off here in Timberville. Can't drop it off until 7 a.m. I went down the road, checked the place out. Nothing but a old guard sitting in his shack eating some donuts. Literally, I'm like back here in the Boone Stickers, kind of in Virginia, off of 81. It was kind of funny. Went in there and check in. Something I hate about going into some of these places, they have a guard shack. Because you have some guards, they start to get out of the van, they freak out. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get back in there. I'm coming to you. Whatever. They can freak out that you're getting out of the freaking vehicle. Others, you look at them, they're looking at you, looking at them, looking at you, looking at them, looking at you, looking at them, trying to figure out who's going where. So you sit there, and you're like, is he coming to me? Do I need to go in there? Then you get up. Then you go in there after about 5 minutes of sitting there looking at each other real stupid like. Then you go in, and most of the time it's usually an old person or somebody just completely very lazy that didn't want to get out. But today, as I said, went in there, old guy, man. It was just funny though. Just funny. Walked in, like I said, he's got a couple donuts sitting in front of him. Got his hat all kind of cockeyed sideways and shit. Shirt all wrinkled. Chomping on a donut, fucking sugar and shit all on his face. It was kind of humorous. He's looking at me all like, what are you doing here? Told him, I said, anybody here receiving? No. Like, what time do they come in? 7 a.m.? Like in a questioning tone, like, yeah, no, I'm asking you. Don't ask me, I'm asking you. So, that's what time I have for my protect time is 7 a.m. So, get up in the morning, go down there, and get it picked up. Or get it dropped off. So, sitting here at a Walmart right now. Online it says it closes at 1 a.m., but I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't. But if it does, I'm going to camp out here until somebody says something. So we'll see how that goes. But I just wanted to kind of... I can't remember if I did a video before talking about how I even got into expediting. I have to go back through and look. But if I did, I don't know how well I went over. But and it's probably been a while since I did. It's somewhat relevant just because I feel like just to know a little bit of my background and what I did to get going out here. It's like, the thing is, I'm not doing fantabulous out here. It's not like I'm rich or anything. I make a decent living. I pay my bills. I've got one other van that I run. I do okay. But I'm not, it's not like I'm some rich-ass motherfucker out here, making tons of dough. But I do pretty well at what I do. And I just wanted to talk about how I got started. And so a little backstory is my dad, he's a truck driver. He's driven truck all my life. So, I can make the claim that I've been around the transportation industry all my life. But I'm not real knowledgeable on big trucks. I don't know all the ins and outs of trucking. So I hate to even kind of say that in that way at all. I know very little about the stuff. I know enough of the basics, and I have enough common sense on the industry to know certain things, but by no means am I like some super knowledgeable person in the industry. Not in the least bit like that. But so I say that to say is that my first taste of driving, obviously, when I was a kid, driving with my dad, going on the road, I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. Remember being on the road with him a couple times, going to a truck stop, smelling the diesel fuel, just being on the road and at truck stops in general, and going into some of these steel mills. Remember, I used to have to hide in the bunk, because the guards, you weren't allowed to take kids in there at some places. So I have to jump in the back, hide in the bunk and everything, and then, be in there and see all them overhead cranes, all them big pieces of equipment, hauling that steel shit around. So that was my first taste of it, and I loved it. I mean, I did. I loved the shit out of it, even as a kid. And then the first time I really got to drive, I was 17. My dad had these two little C20, I think they were, C20, C30 pickup trucks with the flatbed on the back of them. Then he had one Chevy that was had the regular bed on the back. And me and my brother and whoever other drivers he had or himself used to take freight places in those things. And back then, it would be hot freight, or they called it hot shot freight, which is kind of crazy because the hot freight is sort of similar to what we do, which is expediting. But then you also have hot shot trucking out there, which is the pickup trucks pulling the trailers with the fifth wheel. So it's kind of weird how that kind of morphed into those trucks. And also, expediting became its own thing separate from hot shot freight, when it's kind of the same thing. You still go into some of these places and they're like, oh, you're the hot shot, or they have it listed as hot freight. Because I can remember back then, you'd see little flame plastic sticker labels on the sides of the freight that said hot, so you knew that was, it was in a hurry. Used to pick that kind of freight up at little nozzle places. I lived in Akron, or I still live in Akron, but I lived in Akron growing up as well. And so we'd hit like Cleveland, LTL, Republic Steel, and Canton. Would go out a lot of times. It was usually once or twice a week. Go out to Pittsburgh, Large, Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and pick up like mortar, brick, and these rotary nozzles. Haul them to them places. The furthest I ever went back then was usually like St. Louis was the furthest I had been back then. First trip I ever took in a standard shift was going up to Detroit, Michigan, up to River Rouge, up to the Ford plant up there. So that was my first experience driving with a clutch. So that was all when I was 17, doing that for the first time. And again, I loved it. I mean, I loved getting in there. I loved sleeping in the vehicle. I loved going to the truck stops, the rest areas. I loved getting loaded, strapping shit down. It was just, I just enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I always wanted to do it. Do it for a living. But I prefer to do it in those smaller trucks. I didn't ever want to get into a big rig. That really wasn't my desire. I liked the little trucks, being able to, bounce in and out of places, because in the big trucks, a lot slower paced, obviously bigger equipment, more responsibility, more risk. So I enjoyed the smaller pickup trucks. And so fast forward, I got in some trouble and everything. So all that stuff went sideways. I got out. I signed up for driving school, and that went to shit for my CDL. That went to shit, and that was 1998. And then I just eventually ended up starting to have a family, and got all down that road with the family and everything, going every different direction besides that. Had a buddy of mine that I would talk to every once in a while. I happened to be texting him, and this was in 2000. We're in 20 now, so this was 2012. Texting a buddy of mine, just asking what he's doing. He said just driving around Texas, I think is what he said. He said something, mentioned Texas, and I know he lives in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm like, what the hell are you doing in Texas? And he says, my job. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What's your job got you out in Texas doing? And he says, I'm hauling freight in a van. Oh, man, I was like, what? I mean, I perked up immediately. Quit texting him, just called him. Like, tell me about this job, man. Tell me what's going on. What are you doing? And he told me exactly what he does. I was like, dude, call your boss. Tell him, man. Like, tell him you got somebody that wants to drive. So we talk for a while. He tells his boss. His boss hem hauls. He gives me the number. He gets the guy in touch with me. The guy calls me. We talk. I tell him I want to get out on the road. Tell him my background, things like that. He hem hauls. We're about a week or so to, the dude's telling me he's going to get another van. So I just stayed persistent. Well, my buddy had some stuff he needed to take care of at home for a while that was going to require him to be home for a couple of weeks or so. So I talked to the owner, the fleet owner, the van owner, and then with my buddy, I like, man, let me fill in for him why he has to stay home. And to give my buddy a little incentive to stay home, and take care of stuff, because he wasn't sure if he could go home for what he had to take care of because he needed to work and make money. So I went on the road. I paid my buddy 10% of what I made to basically get that position. That's how bad I wanted to get out there. I was paying somebody to let me have their spot, to let me go out and do this job. And to start off, I was getting 75% of what the van made per mile. I paid fuel, I paid tolls, and then all the other normal costs as far as food, drink, whatever else I was getting. The owner was responsible for all the stuff for the van. So I'm making 75%, of 80 cents per mile when it was 80 cents. So I did that for a couple of weeks, and I did that for like 3 weeks, and dude was sold on me staying working for him. So he ended up getting another van and putting me in it, and then I drove for him for about 10 months total. Now, I just want to describe the van that I drove. Very first van I got put in, it was a Chevy. I think it was like a 1999 Chevy, I believe. It was a 99, 98, somewhere in there. It was a short bed Chevy, 2 skids, no power windows, air conditioner didn't work. Tires had freaking those flat spots on them and shit. Half the dash lights didn't work. There was it was just a shit van, man. I mean, it was a shit. Rust hole in the side door. There was a piece of plywood laying on the floor. No E-tracks, no tie downs on the sides, not even a freaking strap back there to tie shit down with. I mean, it was just shit. I went out, bought straps, ended up putting eye-bolt into the floor to hook the straps to and shit. Just kind of tried to make it as useful as I could, because at first it was just basically hooking the strap onto the sheet metal of shit back in the back, and that shit wasn't safe and wasn't holding worth a shit. But I wanted to do this, so I just continued to make do with what I was doing. I even ended up fixing the air conditioning, and I'm no major mechanic or anything, but did what I need, found out what I needed to find out, got the air conditioning running, but just made do. Changed the lights in the dash, went and got the tires taken care of. Obviously he paid for that stuff, but did everything that needed done. I took care of the van like it was my own, got it up to running, because obviously I need that van to make a living. The summertime in that van was horrible. Like I said, no air conditioning for most of the summer. I didn't get it fixed until halfway or most of the way through the summer. No power windows, so I'm constantly with the windows down. If it started raining or whatever, obviously got to put them up. There's no air conditioning, get you cold. I mean, it sucked. I went to a few places, truck stops and areas that I had to sleep that I didn't trust. So I'm, putting the windows down about that much. I'm back in the back just freaking dripping sweat. I didn't have enough money that I can even go buy me a fan or anything, man, because I'm just paying bills. So I was doing bad money-wise when I first came out. I mean, it was shit. And I made do. Hell, and then my first winter, trying to stay warm. And this is one of the things, man. Like, I didn't know what all I needed to live on the road in a van. So I was sleeping on the floor on a piece of plywood with a blanket and a pillow. I mean, that's it. I mean, I had some clothes with me, and that was it. Just the bare necessities, a hygiene bag. And and so my first winter, trying to figure out how to stay warm. Had no idea. Like, how the fuck are people staying warm out here in the wintertime without just, idling the van? I knew I didn't want to do that. I mean, I'm paying for fuel, and I know it's not good to be idling vehicles like that. So, trying to figure out, ended up finding about a buddy heater. That van, didn't know nothing about insulating a van. Like I said, I didn't have much knowledge on the camping side of things, like what you need to do to stay warm out there in general. Like I said, very, very stupid to that shit, ignorant to that shit. So, try a buddy heater. That sumbitch didn't work worth a shit. I mean, I was sleeping like right behind the seats, had the buddy heater right in the center, and all it did is just kept one side of my body warm. That's it. And it barely kept that warm. So I got to thinking, when I'm asleep and I got the blanket all and those are like ranging anywhere from $50 to $100, $200 for a decent one. Like, man, I ain't got the money for that. So my cheap ass goes into a Walmart, grabbed a 20-foot tarp, and basically made myself a tent in the back of the van. Freaking hung it from the ceiling, cut a slit in the side door, a slit here between the seats, got me a little camping light, hung the little camping light back there, and then I would basically, part it like a curtain, but basically roll it up to the top anytime I had freight that had to come. I loved what I was doing. I knew that I wanted to be on the road, and that's why I bring all this up, because I knew what I wanted to do. I had a taste of this before, of being on the road, so I knew what I wanted. It wasn't I was trying to figure out what it was or whether I would like it by coming out here. So that's the tough part, to try and help people that have never been out here make the decision to come out here, because it is difficult for people to come and transition into, especially the van section, because There's a lot more sitting in the vans because we do so much go, go, go when it's good. And then when it's not good, there's sit, sit, sit. And the sitting drives people fucking crazy, and me included. But I knew I liked it overall. I understood how the business works overall, and so I dealt with it. I just, swallowed it, chewed on it, swallowed it, But you go through that shit where you're thinking dispatch is screwing you, or, why can't they give me a load? It's like, come on, man. They got to be able to call somebody and get me a flipping load, man. Like, come on. But it isn't like that. And, as I said, so that's the relevance of talking about that in general. But just to finish out the story real quick, as I said, I drove for the owner for 10 months in that shithole van. Actually, that van ended up getting a bad transmission, so I got put into another shithole van that was similar. Transmission, he has a guy off Craigslist fix it. It doesn't get repaired right. He has another guy off Craigslist get another transmission and fix it. I take it for a test drive, tell him it's not working right. The mechanic gets in it. Oh, you're just used to it feeling a certain way. It's not going to feel that way. It's got a lot of miles on this motor, blah, blah, blah. Owner decides to listen to the mechanic, not me. I get about 300 miles down the road, and I'm broke down in St. Louis. So ended up getting picked up by another driver and had to drive around with that driver for about 2 weeks, which happened to be a buddy of mine. So it made it a little easier. But, yeah, got through all that bullshit. 10 months later, I even let him know, it's like 6 months ahead of time, come tax time, I am done. I'm buying my own van. I appreciate everything you did. And that's what I did. I went and got my own van, which was the E350, the Econoline, and drove in that thing for about 5 years until I got the Transit. So, and that's pretty much the end of the story as far as what my path has been. I mean, there's more details in it, and I'll do it in videos that pertains to other little things. But as I said, I just wanted to give that background because, as I stated earlier, just everybody's got a different reason for wanting to be out here. Some people have never been over the road at all. I knew this is what I wanted to do. At least I felt I knew. And once I was out here, I mean, it confirmed that, this is what I wanted to do and this is what I enjoy doing. And also I'm sharing this story for those that maybe it's going a little rough for you. If you truly enjoy this life, persevere. If you know this is what you want to do and what you're meant to do, you'll get through it. It'll work out. You've just got to do the things that need to be done, to get you to the next step. I'm glad I worked for an owner when I first came out, just to get the feel of everything completely. Because one thing I did in that 10 months while I was driving, I soaked up as much information as I could from other drivers. Like, I wasn't on Facebook at that time, so I don't even know if there was Facebook groups around at that point in 2012. I had heard of EO, Expeditors Online. I went on there. Now, there's a lot of people on there, and there's some information on there, but they're assholes. At least they were then. I don't know if they still are. I haven't really been on there. They were not helpful at all. They just wanted to beat me down and tell me why I'm not going to succeed. Ask me what the fuck am I doing out here, But my thinking was, like, you're making a living at it. Other people are making a living at it. These businesses are out here making money doing this for a reason. I want to be one of the ones that's succeeding. I'm not going to be one of the 90-some-odd% that's failing. I want to be one of the 10% or 5% that's making it. So EO is a good place to go as far as to get a few bits of information. So I say all to say that there wasn't much resources. I didn't watch YouTube. I didn't do none of that shit. I didn't even, I got my first smartphone once I was on the road, and it was just because I went into Walmart and it was 99 cents to re-up my contract and get a damn smartphone. So I got a smartphone. So the way I learned was every time I was parked at a truck stop, if I seen an Expediter in a van, tried carrying on a conversation. Talk to them. What company do you work for? How many miles you get in a week? What's your pay per week? Talk to him a little bit longer. Let him tell you about how his week has gone as far as, if he's been driving a lot, has he been sitting a lot? Hey, how's your van set up? You mind if I take a look in your van? Pop ahead inside their van, look at the setups, see the different bunk setups, see that you can even make a bunk. Some people had cots. Some people didn't have shit. Some people had, the closed off areas. But it was just by talking to driver after driver after driver for that 10 months that, got me knowing how to do a few things with my van once I got it. the idea of insulating it, putting up storage spaces, things. That's why we decided to do the Facebook group, the Transportation Life Wheels, Wings, and Rudders. We do that to help people out, help them inform them on how to live life a little more comfortably on the road, direct them to a few, the better carriers, give them information that we can. There are some assholes on there still. We can't get rid of all the assholes, but we try overall. So the point of all that, keep searching for information. Don't just go looking for what you want to hear. I didn't go out there looking like I want you to tell me what you want. Like, I want you to tell me what you're doing. Then I can compare it to what I'm doing. I can be honest with what I'm doing and listening to what they're saying they're doing. If I heard somebody that sounded like they was doing good, now I want to find another driver for that carrier. Talk to them. See if theirs matches up with theirs. Call the recruiter. Talk to the recruiter. See what they're actually offering. See if it all adds up. And if I found something better, I would leave. That's how I ended up where I'm at with Barrett. I finally found something that gave me the miles that were comparable and a lot better rate, so I left. And that's how I ended up where I'm at today. For what that's worth, this is where I am. I'm happy with where I am. I'd like to be a little further ahead, but that's all my own doing. That has nothing to do with the industry. The industry has its ups and downs, but if you know what you're doing, you can make it work and you can make a profit. So I hope this video was helpful to you. Anybody that stuck around all this time, man, if you would, like, subscribe, comment. Give me some feedback on this, man. If it helped you, if it was, if there's some questions you have, anything like that, if you would, man, just please. It helps with the algorithm of YouTube, and it helps get this video out there and helps the channel to grow. And I will see you guys in the next one, man. Bye.